Tired of those faded, hazy headlights? I'm going to show you a little hack that I've come up with that will fix that, temporarily at least. That will take you about 1 minute, using a couple of cents worth of products that you probably have at home anyway. So if you take a look with the bonnet or hood up, you'll see what I mean. So you can tell the difference between where the sun hasn't been hitting and it has, and that's quite horrible. Later in this video, I'll show you how to make this a permanent fix. So probably most of you have at home something like WD-40, RP7 or something similar. Even this antique ignition dryer that I found at a garage sale, made by Esso. Now you could spray this on if you want, but basically take an old rag, relatively clean anyway, spray some onto your rag, and I'm out of this stuff, and just give that a wipe over. See how easy this is? The enemy of plastic headlights is sun and weather. Wipe off any excess, and you can see the difference already. Now I think what happens is the RP7 or what have you fills up the micro pores on the plastic, and I've found this lasts a couple of months easily. And just do exactly the same thing on the other side. You'll find this problem will come with age. Now you can buy RP7 at any water shop, and you probably have some at home, given that it's a product that has 1,000 uses easily. So this is just a little temporary fix that I came up with that you can continue to do until you get round to doing it properly. So there you go. Not perfect, but not bad. As you saw, it only took a minute to do both headlights. And I find this lasts a month or two at least, depending if you go through rain and things like that. Now when you compare my 20-year-old car with an 8-year-old car's headlights, obviously they're a lot better on the newer car. There's a number of choices to fix these headlights properly. One is you can do it yourself. There's a million videos on YouTube showing you how to buff your headlights with sandpaper. You have to start with coarse, work your way down to very fine, and ideally buff it at the end. I suspect they may have gone to a better grade plastic in recent years. I even know a girl that spent most of the day buffing up her headlights using toothpaste. In fairness, she did a pretty good job. I recommend that you don't bother buying one of the headlight restoration kits that you can buy from many different auto stores, unless you're prepared to put in the hard work, because there's a lot of sanding to do. Due to the cost and complexities of more modern shapes, from about the late 80s, headlight manufacturers all went away from glass, such as on my old Toyota Land Cruiser here, to plastic. Yeah, you can hand sand headlights yourself, if you're prepared to spend all day doing it, or certainly a good number of hours, but it's fairly hard work, especially if you don't have a buff. Option 2, of course, is to pay a professional to do it. That would be ideally the best option. So maybe shop around for prices what they'd charge. Whilst I'm mentioning options, I suppose you could always try and source an original pair of headlights from the wrecking yard, subject to availability. And of course the final option is to buy some brand new headlights, subject to whether or not they're even still made. Whilst I'm a big advocate normally for genuine parts, you could be looking at thousands of dollars for a pair of original headlights. Another fairly common method is to buy some aftermarket headlights. Most of these should be available still on places like eBay, etc. And these generally are a couple of $100s for a pair. You may even find there's design changes that you quite like. Let me caution you, however. That's what I did with the Nissan 350Z that I bought. It came with very faded lights, and at the time I couldn't be bothered to try and sand them down and polish them up. So I did purchase some aftermarket headlights. Let me give you a little caution though. If the headlight design has tiny little LED lights in them, what I found in my case, much to my disappointment, even though I rarely used the car, and even rarer at night time, is when I came to sell the car, some of the little LEDs, because it had 5 extra in the headlight, weren't working. Now, depending on which state you live in, or even country, You may find that the laws permit maybe one LED to be not working. Otherwise, you may not be able to get a roadworthiness certificate in order to sell the vehicle. So just bear that in mind when you buy replacement LED headlights, because you cannot replace the tiny little LED components. But yeah, most cars that have a bit of age on them, if they're kept out in the weather and sun, will eventually suffer this problem most likely. That's why even if you don't have a garage to put your car in, at least buy a decent car cover to stop the sun, because I spent a fortune years ago using high-grade stainless steel. I made a very expensive shade sail, which does keep a lot of the sun off. But of course the sun moves across the sky. So if you park there long enough, over time, your headlights will get exposed to the elements. So, if you found that video useful, please give it a like. If you're so inclined, you can always buy me a coffee by scanning the QR code. And you might also like this playlist of all the car tips that I've come up with over the years. Cheers.
Take care. You're my man.